if my estimations are correct going into this chapter, from what we are given, the whole layout of the chaos and what's going on in the chaos, we can kind of guess who the new enemies are. So, we started out with the Holy Knights, and then we had the kind of like start out demons, and then some of the upper demons, and then straight Demon King. But now we're moving on to just beings of chaos. The beings of chaos, assuming, because it's as explained to Kath was, essentially Kath was a creature that was born from the original mother of chaos and now hungers for the actual one, the full source. Just pretty much staying with Arthur this whole time to lead him on this path and, get the chaos presented to him. I enjoy this. I'm happy about this. It was set up, and there's some chapters that really kind of hint at the ominousness of Kath not really giving it. And we did get some parts earlier that show that Kath was a bit monstrous. I can't name the chapters off the top of my head, but I'm sure, if you read the series, I'm talking about some of like the more very aggressive, like spiky tooth mouth parts of Kath. But also the fact was it like had like a power level of like 60,000 just in magic. But now, after consuming Arthur's arm, is getting revved up with like the chaotic power, and the Lady in the Lake is describing essentially that chaos, like banished, like his name is Kath Palug, and I'm hoping it's gonna be kind of more like that, where you get like these very weird names that sound a little bit, Lovecraftian, and just the way that they're both. It just kind of presented. It's kind of hard to describe it. If you go look at like a lot of Lovecraft like monsters, then you're gonna kind of run into names that sound similar to this. But as it is, you have Catherine into this, larger, more actual body cat, but with like this tri-forked tail. You got like all these jagged teeth coming out and this big, large, bloody tongue. Looking monstrous. This is essentially apparently, I think we can assume what Kath's true form is. And Arthur seems very just unhappy about it. And not just like, oh man, we gotta deal with this. It's more of, now his friend has turned on him. And from what I would guess about this chapter is like just a display of like the chaos energy, because Kath, it looks like they all kind of go into Kath's mouth. It's like this spiral and just kind of like pulling everybody in, and no matter what they do, they can't really blast their way out. And it actually shows that it's a like pocket dimension that Kath has created. It looks like just some empty spaced weird weird looping kind of area. But Arthur wants to talk to him, and he's just like, listen, what am I to you? That's all I really want to know. And Kath says, listen, you order food. Us preparing you, I was just trying to lead you on the way in order to get you further down the path that I wanted, so I can eat the chaos by eating you and whatnot. And then Arthur you just see the little dimension swirling, and Arthur just cuts right through it, and he's got like this really neat sword, and then like it's got the one angelic wing, the one like evil demonic bat wing, for light, dark, and chaos. It's got like this really cool black and white checkerboard pattern on the handle too. I really like it. I enjoyed the designs for both what we thought was Excalibur when we got Excalibur, and this is going to be the true one. Maybe this is like Excalibur in its real form, because it says that like the Lady in the Lake says that, like, what is the line? When the key finishes completing its duty, the holy sword will become the true holy sword when returned to its owner. So this is essentially what the actual form of Excalibur is going to be. And I like that. I mean, Excalibur is generally, this very powerful kind of like sword for good. I like the idea of it being why it's so powerful is it being this sword of chaos. And I really enjoy the design. It's not too big, but it's got like that split near the end, like this cool, like 4 wings, 2 bat wings, 2 angelic wings near the end of it. And then actually, is it 6? Because it looks like part more is connected. Either way, you can see in the shadow that it's not just, these little spirits coming out of it. There's like a part right after he attacks that you can see the silhouette of Arthur's sword, and it looks like, that little wingtip is at the end still. I imagine, like, my guess is like the reason that Nakaba made the sword design a lot smaller is if Arthur does become the main character, he's probably not going to want to have to draw that giant sword all the time. Like, Meliodas was actually supposed to have a massive great sword if you've read the 7 Deadly Sins one shot, but then, it switched into the broken sword, and then his actual Lost Vein, the little short, well, yeah, I was going to say dagger, but really it's still a short sword. But after that point, you just have Arthur being, listen, I can now do this without any regrets, and it's unfortunate just because, you know, Kath was his friend. It would be like, you know, any of the dragon slayers and fairy tales to kill their exceed. You can look at it as, oh, they're a pet, but really they're intelligent and they can communicate, so they were able to, you know, befriend them just as much as they could, you know, a normal person. But Arthur does this big slash, and you see this massive explosion off of the distance, and this is just like a little display of his power. I'm honestly hoping he keeps the one arm. I really like just that whole, like, this one-armed chaotic king of Camelot. I just think that's super badass. But from what I got in this chapter, one, all of the bad guys are going to be these banished creations of the Mother of Chaos, which again, I think is really neat because the idea behind it, when we had like angels and demons, Nakama could do relatively like his own style on them, but for the most part, they had to kind of fit a bill. I mean, we can't count like Dolor, Glocksnit, because they were not really demons. They just were powerful enough and then, you know, joined up. But relatively otherwise, the demons were, they were kind of like, you know, obviously demonic. And with the goddess clan, they were going to be very angelic-like. And these chaos creatures seem more like nightmare creatures. It's more of this very distorted, very weird, just all around like horror. And it's not just like, oh, like stark and scary. It's nightmare fuel kind of, because that's really what Kath was. Kath wasn't as terrifying as something like Enduro Monspiet, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name still right, but it's that whole just absolute like horrific alteration of something that was like this little cutesy thing into this large, snaggly fanged, bloody, long-tongued monster, and that just like swallowed him up in some like weird spiral dimension inside of his stomach. But from that, I kind of guessed like, one, we're going to get more of these chaos beings coming for Arthur, because otherwise who really are going to be the enemies? I think creatures directly from the chaos, it would be really cool, and I think it would fit a lot in the whole kind of fantasy style, like you know, the old, you know, knights and, well, I can't say dragons, but, you know, knights and magic of Seven Deadly Sins, and having more of like a, you know, fantasy RPG kind of theme, like an older style of it. And one of the things is when you look at it, it's like the idea of chaos in these games are very apparent, because, you know, you're leaving it up to chance and you're rolling dice and whatnot. There are like beings of chaos in it, but I really like that, the fact that, one, to combo settle this up, and two, it's going to lead to a lot of really interesting enemies. And especially like if the enemies, we could get them all in their own group. Maybe we'll get some of them that work alone as like the starting out ones, kind of like all mini bosses, and then we'll get, you know, whatever their bad guy organization is, whatever their union is going to be between however many enemies we get. But this one, for this fight, it seemed more of like what I call measuring stick characters. It's like this character is just set up so one character can knock them down and really see what they're capable of. In terms of power levels, like we saw like a pretty big explosion from Arthur, but it wasn't something like beyond what we've ever seen in Seven Deadly Sins. It was definitely strong, but nothing we can kind of really compare it to, other than just assuming like, oh, well, it must be stronger than like the Demon King or something. He'd, you know, be up there with like Meliodas and stuff. But I was more intrigued on like, obviously, the fact that he's got like, I'm wondering if you could count it as spatial cutting, or it would be because chaos, because obviously his chaos is stronger than Cat's chaos. It's a little bit weird on that one, and we already know like a little bit of reality warping. I think like spatial cutting is well within what you could kind of estimate with his power. But Kath just being set up so you can see what Arthur is, you know, going to be moving towards. And Arthur was really strong in the series even before this. I remember back when he was like fighting upper level holy knights with just swordsmanship, no magic. And then, you know, once he started to kind of get some magical skill, he was like completely shrugging off any of the demons, like the red and the gray ones. And then once he wielded Excalibur, you know, he just went up and it was like the 50Ks or something. But now this is what he's actually been built up for. Beforehand, it was just kind of, you know, him climbing the ladder. But now he's definitely going to be actually like looking at the sword. Like the end kind of makes me think of like a warblade. But now that Merlin wants to keep him safe, she wants to protect him, and she's just going to say, you know, she doesn't really want to involve any of the other members of the Seven Deadly Sins at this point. She's not really up to talking negotiation. Snaps her fingers and teleports them out of there. I'm really intrigued on what Nakama is going for. I actually really want to see like his whole plate on this, because again, it's not like he's improvising this just so he can prolong the series. Like, there are aspects that were foreshadowed, like again, Cat and whatnot. We already know that Arthur was hyped up earlier in the series, and then we only found out recently what it was really to, which I can appreciate that kind of idea. Like, the idea, like, that this was actually supposed to be the big endgame stuff. The 10 Commandments, the stuff between the Goddess Clan, that was just squabbles between two kind of, like, really powerful characters that were so, like, have their heads up their own asses that they thought they were real deities, when in reality, they were just mad that the real kind of, like, deity-like power wasn't for them, that being, you know, the Mother of Chaos and the, like, raw form of chaos itself. So, from that point, I am looking forward to the next couple chapters. I want to know whether or not it's going to, like, Seven Deadly Sins title is going to end, and then it will be a new series under Arthur's name, or it stays as Seven Deadly Sins. Is Arthur going to be the bad guy? Not too sure, because, like, the idea where Arthur becomes, like, a member of the Seven Deadly Sins, maybe, you know, he becomes the main focus of it. But if he becomes the enemy and the Seven Deadly Sins, like, have to go against him, then who's going to be the 7th member, I wonder? Because I'm not even that. Who's going to be the 6th and 7th? Because now Merlin's not in there too. Not too sure. Maybe Guilt Thunder can somehow, like, cheat his way up to get really strong, and his character could finally be relevant after such a long span of time. But other than that, comment below. Tell me your thoughts are about this chapter. One, I gotta say, I do really like the sword design. I think it's really neat, simplistic, yet really telling about, like, you know, his power. And the visuals on it, like that big spread. I was tempted to use that big explosion scene as, like, what I wanted to use, but I very much just liked seeing Arthur, you know, ready to move out. No, there's no sweat marks. The blood that's dripping out of his arm isn't even, well, where his arm was isn't really phasing him. He's just set and prepared, knowing what he has to do. But other than that, comment below. Tell me your thoughts about the chapter, and I'd really appreciate if you would thumbs up the video from the like button and subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But I appreciate everyone's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening.